All right, everyone, the red light is on and we are recording. This is Mark back for another episode of the Veteran Semi-Professional. So today is an interview episode where I'm interviewing a veteran about their life and career after the military. All in effort to help you if you're still trying to figure out what do I do once I can put my hands back in my pockets, grow out my hair, and start wearing these things called civilian clothes. This is the show for you. So I talk to people to try and figure out what worked for them in their transition, what didn't work for them, or some stumbling blocks they might want to point out for you, and then also how they got started in their career path. So if you're trying to think of following someone else, you can kind of get some inside baseball on what getting started in that looks like. And then along the way, I think we'll have some good conversations about what they've learned in their career that you can take with you, regardless if you're going to go the same path or something different. So super pumped for today's guests. Got some really good stuff to get into. So Nick, if you could take a minute and introduce yourself, that'd be awesome, man.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. I'm super excited to be here. Yeah, my name's Nick Devlin. Had a pretty, typical upbringing, and went to college and did that whole thing, and then kind of floated around a little bit for a few years after college. Got into the punk rock scene, and then ultimately joined the military at about 28 years old.
And awesome. And what'd you do in the military?
So I was with the 75th Ranger Regiment and joined, enlisted, wanted to be a door kicker and be with what I thought at the time was, some of the best service members in the world. And, I still think that. Yeah, it was awesome.
Awesome. Well, I'm remembering. So I had a previous podcast guest, guy by the name of Michael Broderick. Um, he's an actor and a voice actor now. Former,
Yeah.
I think he was a aviation mechanic or something in the Marines, if my memory serves correctly. But he also spent some time as a punk rocker, and that's
Yeah.
why it's coming up for me right now.
That's cool.
Super cool, man. I've had a number of guys from the 75th on the show, and they're always fantastic people, and always make for good episodes as well too. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Well, hopefully I don't ruin your average here.
okay, no worries, no worries, no pressure. Well, cool, man. So first, let's talk about your personal transition from the army, kind of good, bad, ugly.
Yeah.
What do you think you went well, and then what were some stumbling blocks you might want to point out for people coming in behind you?
Yeah, man, I appreciate this question. It's something that's near and dear to my heart. And I should probably mention that now I'm a life coach, right? So
Mm-hmm.
major transition from, going to school for engineering, joining the military, being in the 75th Ranger Regiment, and now a life coach. And it's been about 10 years since I got out. And it was a really challenging transition. At the time, I didn't really have a grander plan for my life. I just knew that it was time to get out. I had a young family, had gone from being completely single and carefree to now I got a wife, I've got responsibilities, I've got kids on the way. And so I knew it was time to get out, but I didn't have any bigger plan or vision. So I just kind of started going through the motions, right? And I went back to work, gave myself zero time to like reintegrate into civilian life, just kept operating from that same kind of ranger mentality of just go, right? Charge through the next wall. And ended up, getting back into engineering, which I really didn't want to do, didn't light me up at all, but I just felt like I've got this responsibility. I don't get to do what I want to do. I have to show up. And then the next thing I was like, I need to go get my MBA, right? And I love your quote that like, this is what military people do when they don't know what else to do when they get out, right? So that's what it was. It was like, okay, I think that's the next milestone. I had this sense that I wanted to continue being a leader and having some kind of impact. But I was just swirling, man. I really swirled. I had all sorts of physical issues that cropped up. And I look at that now and it was like, yeah, because I was beating the hell out of myself for 4 years straight, multiple deployments, training cycles. And, it was like, okay, now it's time to pay that debt.
Yeah, yeah,
You don't have to go be a superhero every day. Cool. Here's what you owe us now. My body
yeah.
just fell apart. And, and I did all the things, all the maladaptive things to try to self-medicate and, suppress what was inside, all the trauma, all the PTSD, and just kept charging ahead. And that caught up to me. So I don't recommend that approach for anyone who's getting out or has gotten out recently.
Yeah, well, if you're let's just get right into it. If you're comfortable in sharing, like, how did that catch up to you?
Yeah.
How did it catch up? And then how did you kind of realize that it had caught up to you?
Yeah. Um, it caught up after I finished my MBA, and I continued charging ahead, right? Even before I was done with the MBA, I had gotten a job with a great company. I was like, all right, I'm on that corporate track, and I just kept thinking, like, if I can just grab that next rung on the ladder, everything's going to be okay,
Right.
and it wasn't. Got to this new job. Happened to require us to move from New Hampshire to New Jersey, right outside Manhattan. So I mean, really head first into the rat race, the hamster wheel, and I was there for a few months before I sort of woke up. It feels like that. And what triggered that was a friend of mine asked me a question. He said, "Do you want to stay married?" Right? And I was like, "Is that the question right now?" I had my blinders on, right? Of just charging
Yeah.
ahead, trying to make it at work, and and so I took a really honest look at my life and realized that it was nothing like the life that I wanted to live or even thought I was living, right? So it was a pretty hollow experience, and I realized that answering that question, I did answer it yes eventually. I took a couple of days because I was like, this is a really big question.
Yeah.
It really
Yeah.
kind of shook me, and I realized that my answer was yes, and I realized that at that moment that meant I had to turn everything around, and the level of like anxiety that caused for someone like me who now this is about 40 years old when this happened, right? So I've lived my entire life by a certain pattern of go 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 and accomplish and achieve, and all these things that most of us absorb, right, from
Right.
this day and age. I realized that wasn't working for me, and I had to basically demo all of it and rebuild it. And I had no idea how I was going to do that, but I knew it was that important. Like, this is a pivotal moment in my life. I'm suffering, people around me are suffering based on a lot of my choices, and so I need to make some new choices, and I need to start living my life with some intention. And that was the turnaround point.
Well, one, thank you for sharing that and like being open to giving it out to the crowd. I really appreciate that honesty and vulnerability.
Yeah.
Um, and for those of you listening to the show, I think we've heard a number of stories kind of with some flavor of this. Of I was in the military and I was SOF, aviation, Ranger Regiment, whatever it was, Intel analyst or JSOC, whatever. And then I get out and go to business school and I go get that big flying corporate job and everything. And it's like, yeah, I've been on that hamster wheel of achievement and success because like that's what I've been. One, you get like a lot of like the external validation from the outside world of like this is what you're supposed to be doing,
Right.
and then like we very much are very like internally driven people and very much inclined to like I'm just going to keep pounding through brick walls because like I know I can do it, like fucking Ranger Smash. I'm just going to make it happen some way or another, right? Like we're going to figure it out. And then somewhere it's like 2 to 3 years after that, people are like, this just isn't what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it for kind of everybody else almost, and not so much. And I don't know if this is what you were feeling, but this is like a narrative I've heard from a number of people, and it like I was doing this for everyone else, and it's kind of missing the mark on like what it is that really motivated me and was stopping me from living like the life that I wanted. I'll pause there for any comments.
Yeah, 100%. I've said those words exactly. Like I've lived for other people, for other people's expectations, all this external stuff, right? Trying to match, like, okay, this is what success is supposed to be. All right, I'll go do that, right?
Yeah,
Never, turning in and going, what do I want, right? What do I want my life to look like? What are my values, right? Like, never did any of that work until I said, all right, I need to turn things around, and that quickly led me to transformational programs, webinars, listening to people speak about personal growth, and um, man, life got really really cool after that.
yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm like totally just blanking on the question I was about to ask there. So forgive me, everyone. I'm putting my foot in my mouth right now. But I guess at first I want to go back to that decision process of, okay, someone asks you like, do you still want to be married? And you like, spend a couple of days reflecting on it, and you say yes. And
Yeah.
then like that is okay, something needs to change here. So like what were the first like action steps on this? Okay, I think I've kind of made the mental decision to change something. How do I start putting like this feeling into motion?
Yeah. There's a couple of really key things. One, I had to speak it out loud, right?
Yeah.
That was the first step is I had to summon up the courage to say like, okay, I'm not going to ignore my heart here, right? Because that's something that I had done repeatedly for my life.
Yeah. And
And
I just want to jump in here for a second. Like, verbalizing it, oh my God, that is a huge step in anything.
yeah,
Like the moment we all have these things going on inside of us. They're like, I want to do this, or like I'm feeling this, and like you kind of thinking it, but the moment you say it
yeah,
is like dramatically different, right?
well, yeah,
Like I'm even thinking of like when I was getting out of the army, and I kind of knew, okay, like I'm gonna get out, but I hadn't really told anyone yet. And like the moment I went and spoke with my commander and was like, I'm getting out of the army, complete game changing experience on like where I
yes,
started going mentally, right? And like I just finished up in business school, and when I like verbalize to people like I'm going to do a startup, like I'm not going to go recruit for McKinsey and try and go get that job. It just changes it because I've been
yeah,
feeling it and like you're like thinking it yourself, but like now you're putting it out there for people to
yes,
to troubleshoot and to poke holes in and everything, and it completely changed the dynamic of the game
yeah,
just to verbalize it. So I just want to like expand on that because
I,
like I'm
yeah,
feeling you there, man.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm feeling it too, man. And
yeah.
I could play in this conversation all day. I'll be honest, all week. I mean, because this is one of the most powerful things that I do with people as a life coach too, right? Is this idea of speaking something out loud. You remember the phrase as kids, abracadabra,
Right, right.
right? Abracadabra is actually Aramaic, and it translates to "as I speak, I create."
Oh, that's
Right?
deep.
We are creators, man. We have magic in us, right? We can create our reality. We can manifest it, and people talk about that all the time. It's like, oh, it's woo woo. This shit is real, man. You can tie it back to quantum physics if you want to get, scientific and get away from the woo woo spiritual stuff, right? But this stuff is real. And you've experienced it, I've experienced it, right? When you speak it out loud, which is scary, right? It's scary because it's a superpower and we're not used to using it the way that, we can. But yeah, when you speak it, it creates. People hear it. Now they want to support you, or maybe they don't. Either way, it's creating something new. You start to believe it. Your brain goes, "Oh, okay, this is what we're doing now," right? And I think the universe conspires to support you, right?
Yeah.
So it's really really powerful. And the cool thing about it now is like I was on my own, right? I was like, "Oh, here we go. I'm going to have this huge conversation, life changing thing. I got to talk to my manager about how, hey, I know I've been here less than a year, but I'm leaving." Right? I got to talk to my wife, admit to her that I've been a shitbag, haven't been there for her. And okay, let's turn it all around. I have to admit to myself that all of this feels like a sunk cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars to get to this point, years of my life. Oh, let's just do something completely different now. Right? Like talking about that, saying that out loud takes balls.
Yeah,
it's,
man.
it's hard, right?
Yeah.
And what I know now is that you can practice that stuff. Like that's the magic of one of my favorite things to do with people is like you got something big coming up, you got something really scary to talk about that you want to do that's going to change your life. We can practice that so you can go do that confidently, right? Aligned your with your energy aligned with your knowing what's going to happen. And I see it happen time and time again with people that practice this. It goes exactly the way they planned, right? It's insane. Like how can you? But you can create that. So
So I totally interrupted your train of thought earlier when you were talking about like verbalizing. Okay, and
yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
we could turn into a whole podcast just about verbalizing. But I want to go back to this like action step because someone else. I have a feeling there's someone listening to the show who is like
Yeah.
maybe either on the cusp of verbalizing that thing or maybe they recently did. And like, how do we kind of get those like first? How do we like get the giant wheel turning? Is like what I kind
Yeah.
of want to dig into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So this is a big question. And anyone who's out there thinking about this right now, I'm here to tell you that on the other side of that is freedom, is the life that you want to live. It seems really scary right now because it's a big jump to a new track, right? And that's a little bit squirrely sometimes. But if you feel that pull, that call in your heart to make a big ask, to make a big change, to say something out loud that's your truth right now, it leads to what you're looking for. I could say that with 100% certainty because I've lived it. I've seen other people go through it. And if that's the only thing that I get to share with anyone for the rest of my life, that's what I'm sharing.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Okay. So like you go to your boss and say like, I'm quitting. You go
Yeah.
to your wife and your family and say like, this track that I've been on, we need to veer off course somewhere.
Yeah.
How did those conversations go? And like, what was the thought on, this is where I want to go with this?
Yeah. Well, they went amazingly, right? And I'm grateful for that. And the only thing I can think is like I was following some kind of path, like I was getting on the right path, right? Like I said, jumping tracks. And I've seen this over and over in my life. When I make a big commitment like that to my heart, to my dream, it's like the things happen, right? They're there. So I had this conversation with my manager, and it was like, he was very understanding, right? Because I was coming from the heart. I was like, look, my life is shit right now, and I love this job. I love my team. I love working with you. I think this company's amazing. But if I don't get my family straightened out, if I don't get my life straightened out, none of this matters,
Yeah.
And coming from that really vulnerable, humble place, which again is really freaking hard for a Ranger infantryman, right?
Right.
I gotta let go of all of that exterior and just be like, dude, it helped that he was a veteran and all that, but he was like, cool, I want to help you. I want to work with you, and we just made a plan and we executed, and I stuck around long enough to train the new guy. And, and it was just this really supportive experience where I felt seen and heard. I was able to continue contributing, and it was great. So that's the thing is like, our brains always go to like the negative, right? We're like, oh, this is going to go terribly. Well, it might, but it also might go amazingly,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, giving at least a little bit of room there for a miracle can change the whole energy of the interaction. And then with my wife, we were actually divorced recently. So in some ways, that was the beginning of the end as I reflect on it now. And it was still absolutely the right call, for me in integrity to be true to my values and to be, show up how I wanted to show up for my family. And it was another very humbling conversation, but it was scarier for me to speak that out loud than it was to actually, the thought of speaking out loud was scarier than actually doing it. Right. It actually was a very bonding experience. Right. Because she was at the point, she was like, I'm taking the kids and going back to New Hampshire. Are you coming with us? Right. So she was already committed to a path. And for me to come back to her and say, hey, I made a promise, I want to be here for you, for the kids, willing to change what I need to change to make this work. It was a really awesome interaction. It actually brought us closer, and we just, again, came up with a plan. How are we going to do this? Let's work on it together. And so, yeah, all those things that feel really scary, they lead to good things when you stand in your courage.
I want to go back to that kind of the conversation with your manager and putting together, because you could have, what people like might have been hearing here was like, Nick had this light bulb moment and went in the next day and was like, screw you guys, I'm out, man. Right. And if that's like how you feel confident enough doing it, then I'm not here to stop you.
Yeah.
But I would encourage anyone, like, slow your roll, homie, and like be a little more deliberate. And I
Yes.
like that, like you spoke with your manager and you said, okay, listen, like I kind of want to change things in my life, but I also don't necessarily like want to screw everyone around me in this situation. And how can we kind of work together to, you know, give me what I need, but then also not negatively impact everyone else here on the team. And I think like that's a really important thing in like being deliberate about these types of pivotal moments in your life of
Yeah.
understanding, you know, I need to do something for me, but there's also other people involved in this equation, and like how to kind of respect what they're trying to do on their individual path. And so I like that like you took that route versus
Yeah.
going in and burning down the ship and said peace out.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And, I don't know. I'm grateful that I was at that point in my life where I took that path. I've certainly, done the other in the past where I'm just like, hey, F you, I'm out, good
Yeah.
luck. But, I think it's a testament to the group that I was with and the management that I was a part of. But also, this is, it is possible to co-create something even more amazing than you could ever imagine doing on your own. Right. And it takes being intentional. Right. And it takes really sitting with, okay, what's coming up for me when I think about doing this, because there's going to be all sorts of stuff internally, firing off, um, and, connected to your stories about what it means and your deep seated beliefs and all that kind of stuff. So just taking a little bit of time before you jump into a big decision like that or a big conversation to get really clear on like, what's your intention here? How do you want to experience this? How do you want other people to experience it? What do you want to leave behind in your wake? Um, that's that can be so clarifying and so confidence boosting, that you can walk into these situations like, I don't know how it's going to go exactly, but I know how I'm going to be in this situation, you know, and that's a game changer.
So I know now you are working as a life coach. Did that idea kind of come to you during this period, or like did you start working with a coach? Like how did tell me about the path in this period that kind of led to like what you're doing now?
Yeah. Yeah. So I actually found the 12 steps. That was my first transformational program. And I've never considered myself as having an issue with substance or alcohol or any of that kind of stuff. But what I was able to identify is that I was addicted to control. I was trying to control everything in my life, like white knuckle everything in my life without a grander vision for where I was going. Right. So it's just like getting stuck in the mire with all these little details. Um, and, and I recognized that it presented as addiction to control. So that same person that asked me that question, do you want to stay married, had just gotten out of treatment. And in one of our conversations, he was like, hey man, I've got some tools, they've helped me. Maybe I could share them with you. And he took me through the full 12-step process, and it was liberating, right? It took a lot of work. It took months of me like, okay, let me write down all the stuff that's eating me up inside, all my resentments, and and then go through this process of letting them go and creating space for something else to show up. Right. So I have a lot of love for the 12-step program. I think it's a good starting point. I think there's a whole world of personal evolution that's available. So I always like to encourage people not to get stuck in that place, but it definitely was the trigger that opened me wide up. Right. And then after that, I was like, okay, what's next? Let me check out some other motivational speakers and some webinars and programs. And very quickly hired a life coach. And that was, right before I hired them, I sort of got this inkling that maybe I'm supposed to be a life coach. I got a lot to share. I've been through a lot. I think I could help some people. I've always had that desire to help people. I can remember even in like grade school, talking to kids and I'm like, why are you upset? Oh, well, you should just not do that then, or like change that, like, high school, like, why are you in that relationship if you're bummed out? Like, just leave, go do something better. So I've always sort of had that, desire to help people in that way. And so, yeah, as soon as I hired a life coach, I started looking at coaching schools and things started to happen really quickly after that.
Okay, so I want to get into like how you found the coach you started working with and how you started evaluating them. And I'm just going to go ahead and call out like the elephant in the room that people who are listening to this are probably thinking right now. Because like I know how veterans are, right? And people are like, "What the fuck, man? Life coach? This is like some hippy dippy crystal healing
Yeah.
bullshit. Like, what is this former ranger doing?" Like, talk to me about like how you went through the process of finding someone to work with,
Yeah.
and maybe if you had any of these kind of preconceived notions in your head, maybe how the script changed if it did.
Yeah. Hmm. All right. So I'm going to address the listeners who are like, what the fuck is this shit? Right. First of all, there's every kind of flavor of life coach out there. Right. So if you want the person that's going to crack the whip and just drive you and hold you accountable, like there's people out there for you, right? If you want people who are going to go really deep and get to the core of what's going on and do it in a different way, there's people out there. So if you're at all interested, even if you're like, this is all bullshit, like, okay, go prove it, right? Go talk to some life coaches and keep talking to them until you're certain that, it's all bullshit, right? That's just a fun little challenge. But um, yeah, here's how I look at it is I'm an achiever, right? For whatever reason, whatever's been driving me, I've always wanted to be the best. That's what led me to Ranger Regiment. That's what got me through all the selection and brutality up to then. And then even once you get there, you still got to prove yourself. Um, and I love that, right? I love finding that edge, right? That like amplifier, the accelerator, what's going to help me. And when you're in the military or you're in corporate, there's certain things that help you, but you get to a point where you can't go any further using those tools, right? Tools of just like, I'm just going to crush it. I'm just going to keep pushing, right? Eventually you get tired, you get worn out, you get exhausted, and you realize that you're not accessing like the full experience of life, right? So life coaching is like that. It's the secret weapon to living a more expansive life, right? And and it's hard because you have to really upgrade or even replace your operating system that's gotten you this far. This is what one of the biggest challenges of transitioning, right? What is transitioning? What we don't talk about is it's creating an entirely new identity, right? You got to let go of your MOS.
I always joke to my family that being in the army wasn't a job; it was a lifestyle choice.
Yeah,
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 because like it really does. I mean, from who I hung out with, how I looked, to like everything. Like it was even if I was being unintentional.
yeah,
And I'm going off a bit of a tangent here, but like I have this perfect memory of going skiing in Colorado, and I was wearing like crazy ski clothes, and I hadn't shaved in a week or something. My hair was kind of long, and I
yeah.
walk up to the counter to get my lift ticket, and the woman is like, "Oh, do you want a military discount?" And I was like, "How the fuck did you know that I'm in the army?"
Is it that
And she
obvious?
and she was just like, I just knew,
Yeah,
right? And like it was like that much a part of my identity that like I was like trying to look like I wasn't in the army,
yeah.
but it was just like, oh, this guy's in the army.
So obvious. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and it's a choice, right? I mean, you get to choose how much you want to keep, how
right.
much you want to shed. What do you want to create next? And it's a process; it's iterative, like for your whole life.
Yeah,
But what I would invite anyone who's listening, who's kind of thinking about this, to do is just look at like what's not working, right? Where's the frustration? Where's the agitation? What is the thing that you're like, oh, people are always saying this or doing this? Like, okay, well, what is it? What are you presenting? Like, kind of like that story you said. Like, what is it that you think they're seeing? Or what's not working for you? And ultimately, I look at coaching as in its most simplified form. It's where do you want to go? What peak experiences do you want to have along the way? And what do you think is going to hem you up? Right? Or what is hemming you? Right? Like whatever's stopping you, I'm just going to call it out like it is. It's fear. Right? It may show up like procrastination or avoidance or, you know, frustration or whatever, comes down to fear,
yeah,
right? What isn't it okay for you to do? that other people do, right? There's other people who are crushing it, who are thriving. For some reason you can't do that thing, right? That's where the gold is. Those moments, those realizations, those kind of pivotal situations create the treasure map to the life you want to live. You
Yeah.
got to go there, man. You got to go in the cave.
Yeah.
Let's go in there, let's mine it, and let's get moving so that we can live
Yeah.
a freaking awesome life. Because
Yeah.
that's what we're here to do, right? Like, and most of us, a lot of veterans have lived an incredible life.
Yeah.
So cool, man. The things that you've done, like, you're in an upper echelon, like minor percentage of humanity having done some of the things you've done. It's epic, and your leadership capacity, like, holy shit, man, you're a leader, right? So now you're not in the military. Okay, cool. You don't have to like forget that stuff. You get to hang on to that. But how can you be a most impactful leader now? And it's not using the same exact stuff you used to be a leader in the military. And we still need you, right? We need you.
Yeah.
We need you to lead. We need you to grow. We need you to show the way for where the world's going, man. Desperately. We need you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's get clear on what is that next version that you can connect to. Let's get clear on what are the peak experiences you want to have, you know, and create for others. And then, all right, cool. Something's showing up that you're feeling resistance to. That's fine. We know what to do with that stuff, right? But you probably need help. You probably can't do that on your own, and that's all right. It's all right, man. If you're ever going on a big adventure, you get a guide, right? You
Right.
don't just try to do it yourself. Well,
Yeah.
some of us do, and but get a guide, man. Get a guide. At
Yeah.
least for those super tricky, super challenging parts of the adventure, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I would tell you your message is resonating with me personally on two different levels right now. Okay. Um, the recognizing like why you're not doing something and it's just fear. I totally find myself doing it. In like a day to day life, there'll be like these things I know I have to go do. And then I'll be like, or I can just play this game on my phone for 15 minutes because like I'm afraid to just like go do
Yes.
the work on this thing,
Yes.
right? And then I
Yes.
just keep doing that, and
Yeah.
it's literally just fear that is like the block in my way to get me to go do the thing like I know I need to go do, right?
Yeah.
And like I kind of I want to do, but there's gonna
Right.
be some level of like mental pain or emotional pain, not like deep pain, but like thinking or like diving into a tough topic with like a partner or something like that
Yeah.
that I got to go do. Okay. And then this past week, I've been dealing with, like, I've been grappling with some situations with some of my business partners, and it's just been, it's been tough. Okay. And I've just been like holding it all inside and just like, and then the other night I went and spoke with a mentor of mine who like knows about our business and everything. And he sees tons of startups and everything. And like 45 minutes talking with him, I left the conversation feeling night and day different
Yeah.
because he was able to put some perspective. Like he's seen a lot of these situations. Like this is like my first time really encountering this particular problem. And
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, man, like I've been down this road plenty of times before. Here's how other people have dealt with it. Here's like some wisdom I can kind of pull for you. And I think like we as veterans in particular, like man, we just love to like beat our head against the wall,
Yeah.
thinking that like we can break through because like we have to be the one to do it. But in reality, like there's someone who already figured out how to get to the other side of the wall, and like you just
That's
got to
it.
go to them sometimes and ask. And so you're deeply talking to like me right now, even if no one else in the audience is getting it. Like you're hitting the nail on the head with me right now, Nick. Yeah,
Well, yeah, I love it, man. I appreciate that reflection. And I do, I live it too, right? So I'm
yeah,
speaking from my own experience as well. And I have coaches because I so deeply believe in this process. And that's life, man. That's just life. You're going to go through life. You're going to have some big situations. Fear's going to come up. And I'm here to say, like, life can be awesome,
yeah,
right? It really can. It can be an adventure. Every day can be just this amazing, rich experience of whatever's coming at you, and knowing that you're supported, whether it's a mentor or whether it's a coach, um, knowing that you're supported in that can shift your whole relationship with life, right? I'm so much more at ease these days because I'm like, I know I can handle whatever's coming. And if I can't, I'm just going to make a phone call. We're going to figure this out. It's like
yeah,
having that team on your side. to help you through different situations. It's amazing.
Part of the point of this show is like I want to get into like the tactical aspects of I want to go do XYZ. So can we talk through some like the mechanics of maybe either like I want to go hire a life coach and like how I might evaluate someone, then also maybe I want to go be a life coach and like what does that kind of process look like?
Yeah, awesome. So as far as potentially hiring a life coach, almost every life coach out there has a free exploratory call, right? Some of them are going to be a sales call. Some of them are a legit introductory coaching call that's going to help you get a lot of clarity around what you're doing, right? This is like, it's free. It's a free resource. So when I started looking at coaches, I had at least 3, maybe 4 phone calls before I decided to hire a coach. And so that was like a month's worth of free coaching. And it helped me a lot get really clear so that by the time I invested in someone, I'm like, hey, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to explore. This is where I need help, right? Because all these other coaches had helped me kind of suss that out. So I would 100% recommend that to anyone. And there's a bunch of different places to look for coaches. I mean, if you just Google it, right? Life coaches, you'll find somebody. I'm going to share my contact information. I'm more than happy to help anyone find, if it's not with me, I'll point you in the direction that I think would serve you best. So I think that's the number one tip, right? You could go to, seminars, webinars, and kind of be around coachy stuff to see if, what resonates, and just explore, just turn it into sort of a playful exploration. You'll find the thing that resonates, and you'll just keep pulling on that thread. Like I said, the most important thing is that you find somebody that you can mesh with, that you vibe with, and that their approach kind of works for your style. And there's every variation of that out there. So as far as if you're interested in becoming a coach, there's a couple different paths. And again, I'm happy to have a conversation with anyone about, the specifics of the different paths. But essentially, anyone can hang out a shingle and say they're a life coach. So if you want to go that path, go for it. Your life experience is the most important thing. So you can absolutely help people because you've been there, right? A lot of the professional training helps with how do you show up, right? How do you be in that container with someone and really create the space of transformation? So if you really want to be more effective and pursue this, in a real way, I would suggest getting some kind of training. And that's sort of a similar process to finding a coach. Is you want to find the school or the training that resonates with you. There's, again, like all different investment levels. So the school that I came from is called Coachville. They have a massive scholarship. And so if you wanted to become a life coach, you self-report your income. And based off of that, they'll give you anywhere from some assistance to a free ride, right? For a full coaching certification program where you'll end up being certified by the ICF, and, you can call yourself a professional life coach. And there is some credibility that comes with that. Some people like to see, okay, you've been through some training, you've got a certification from a, certifying body. And that's what I have. And partly because I'm a learner, I just love to learn and dive into stuff. And, but it also really helped me where I needed to sort of polish some edges and be able to show up really powerfully for people in a coaching manner. So that
Okay.
answer the question?
Yeah. No, that,
Yeah.
that was perfect. That was perfect.
Cool.
I think it kind of gives the full idea of the spectrum from,
Yeah.
I can just go through, like I could start, Mark's life coach business. You might even argue that this podcast is kind of a life coach business.
I would argue that. Yeah.
Yeah. To like, the full certification process and everything. Like there's a lot of steps in between. And, you as the person who's maybe looking for a coach, there's a full spectrum of, full buffet option of really kind of what you want to choose from based on what you want.
Yeah.
Well, I want to leave a few minutes to talk about because I think if I remember right, you've got some other type of like adventure program or something in the works too, right? Can
Yeah.
you talk to us about like what that is? Yeah,
Yeah.
just kind of describe like what you're trying to build there.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So I have a big dream, right? My big dream is to uplift humanity and wage peace on the world through transformational adventures. So I use that term fairly loosely, transformational adventures. I think, this has been a transformational adventure in some ways, right? A 30-minute coaching call can be a transformational adventure. And I'm really talking about literally, let's go out in nature, let's climb a mountain, let's spend a few days in the backcountry, um, climb some rock walls, like do some things physically, get in our body, um, in nature together with other people, um, and create that space for transformation, for breakthroughs, for insights, for ahas, for the big shifts to happen. And that's something that I'm really passionate about. I've done a few experiences like this. They've been incredible. Um, and ultimately, I think it addresses, especially the veteran community, where most people get out and they are immediately lacking a sense of connection, a sense of purpose, and a sense of adventure, right? They go from the uniform to a suit and tie, or, you know, worse, right? Homeless or whatever, right? Like it's all of a sudden they're just like out there. So this mission partly addresses that, let's create community, let's create connection, let's create opportunities for adventure, and also to dive into the deeper work, right? And get clear on like, what's the next purpose? What's the next dream? What are the next peak experiences you want to create? And doing that together in nature is just super powerful. Um, so I have a group right now that's online that we're going to be implementing some of those experiences into as well. Uh, and then the larger version of this dream, this is the first time it's been shared on this kind of a platform, by the way. Um, the larger version of this dream is to create a nonprofit that is going to provide a nonviolent adventure alternative to joining the military. And this is, I got a lot of love for the military. I love that, what it did for me and what it's done for a lot of people. And I think there needs to be some middle ground alternative for kids who are thinking about joining the military, but maybe they're only doing it for the college or for the, leadership training. And what they would really like to do is, just go have some badass adventures. And hey, you want to jump out of planes? Cool. We can train you to do that. You want to go through an intense leadership training program like Ranger School? Yeah, we got stuff like that on the roster too. Um, and even if it's just sort of a gap while they're trying to figure out what's next at the pivotal time in their life, right? 17, 18 years old. Um, it's going to give them another platform to explore and see what lights them up. Maybe they end up saying, yep, I still want to join the military. Great. Right. But I think that this is a really powerful option that needs to be there. And I would love for it to be so well funded that, if you choose to come this way and you do it for a few years, we're going to help pay for your college, right? We're going to help subsidize your health care. We're going to give you, zero money down mortgage options. Like, just like the military has these incredible benefits, I want to be able to provide that as well. So it's a massive dream. The vision just came to me a couple weeks ago. Wheels are already in motion, and it's really exciting to see what's going to emerge from it. But it all comes back to this idea of uplifting humanity, waging peace through transformational adventure.
Hey man, dream big,
Yeah,
man.
that's what I tell people all the time. So I wouldn't be in integrity if I wasn't dreaming big, right?
Well, I hope to see this happen. I really do. It sounds like it'd be good for everybody involved, and so I wish nothing but the best for you in that endeavor. Well, Nick, this has been an awesome show, man. We're winding down to the last few minutes. This has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for reaching out. Thank you so much for coming on the show. So in a minute, I'm going to pass it back over to you. Just provide any last thoughts, words of wisdom to the crowd, if you will. But before we do, it's a question I always ask my guests. think back to your time in the Army. What was the best and or worst chow hall you ever ate at?
Oh man. Um, I think the best chow hall overseas, I think it was Bagram Air Force. They get the best
Of
chow.
course, of course.
Yeah. The worst, I mean, worst was MREs. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, that was when there was no chow hall. It was just MREs. And it was really bad when you started to like the MREs, right?
Yeah,
Then you knew you were
yeah,
in trouble.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've had a few psychopaths on here who are like, I had this great time with my guys. We were out in the field and eating MRE and everything. I'm like, listen, man, like I know I see what you're trying to do. I
Yeah,
respect it and everything, but come on, you didn't
yeah. Come
enjoy
on,
that MRE.
don't bullshit me.
You don't bullshit me, man. All right, I ate that same shit. Okay,
Yeah.
don't lie to me here. Don't lie to me here. Anyway. Well, hey man, thank you so much for coming on the show. I just want to pass it back over to you for any last thoughts, words of wisdom that you want to give out to this crowd as they're either thinking about their post military life, or maybe they've recently transitioned themselves and are trying to figure out the next pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, I mean, biggest thing I can say is if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like you're in some kind of prison, there's a way out. There's a way out, and it's going to require you getting in touch with what you really want, drop into your heart, and ask for help. There's people out there who will help you, in any way that you need. You don't have to go it alone, and yeah, so reach out, and
Love
keep
that.
reaching out till you find what you need.
Love that. Well, Nick, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate your time. Okay, and for everyone listening, please like, subscribe, leave a review, tell a friend. This one will also be going up on YouTube, and so if that's your preferred medium, you feel free to check out the video there as well, so you can see both of our shiny, pretty mugs. Well, Nick, thanks for coming on. Everyone else, thanks for listening. Really appreciate your time, and we'll catch you all next week. Take care.
See ya.